Ladies and gentlemen, welcome the Mad Doctor, Adega Outlaw! Light the fires, Valhalla, for Stone Cold Loki! Special guest, Fisk! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 7 Kinds of Mischief!
I dare you to find a better intro anywhere.
Greetings, one and all, and welcome to 7 Kinds of Mischief. I'm your host, Stone Loki. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. How are you all doing? I hope you guys are having a great night out there, and everyone is rocking and rolling tonight. Of course, I'm here with my co-host, the Mad Doctor himself, the one and only Adega Outlaw. How are you doing tonight, brother?
Howdy, howdy. Very good, thank you. And I'm happy to introduce a friend of mine, a big help, a guest that we have tonight. His name's Fisk.
Oh, hey.
Yeah. We're going to find out about him tonight, folks. Instead of me doing something scary or any of that stuff, we're going to do something about the creative side of our part of the universe. Chris has done a lot over the years.
Oh, yeah.
And we can talk maybe about some things. And he was just mentioning there's some things that he has non-disclosure agreements that he can't talk about. But still, I wanted you guys to find out about him. I'll show you why. Before we get into this, let me turn my camera on real quick. When you order comics and stuff from Indie, normally you get a nice little envelope and everything. With Chris, you get a hardcore box that's loaded with goodies. You get the opportunity to, and I still haven't opened these, to get these little acrylic standees. The guy he's like the epitome of perfection when it comes to taking care of people. I did want to show you something for those of you who have the Blood Witch as well. You see that symbol there? You'll also find that in the Blood Witch book. He made it, and he allows me to use it. So,
the Underrock.
Yeah. So we get to talk about him tonight.
Cool.
And really quick, we've got a $5 super chat from Psychodorf9. Thank you so very much, brother. And he says, dang it, I started B-roll of construction and I got the wrong glue. That and I need modeler's green stuff for seams. Ugh. Ooh. So sorry about that, brother. Man, when you start on a project and you're like, okay, I got everything I need, let's rock. And then you're like, crap, I don't have this, or I got the wrong this, or oh no.
Oh, yeah.
As mad as Gimli. That only counts as one. Thank you, Psychodor, for that $5 super chat, brother.
Between me and Chris, no, there's no shared universe. And we're going to get into it because Chris has been developing his universe of these elves for a very long time. And they're just starting to roll out. And I think you guys are going to be amazed at what we have here. Before we get to that, though, let's start off with the very beginning. How'd you get into geekdom?
How did I get into geekdom?
Yep. What was your first job? Because you've actually worked in the industry in one way or another.
Oh, yeah. Well, my first official job, I worked in video game development from about 2004 onward till about 2014, where I kind of jumped ship. But that was my foray into the creative side of business. And wow, I'm glad I'm not in that anymore.
What was it like? Without saying the company, what was it like?
Well, the first company that I worked for was or worked in was a indie company that before the days of crowdfunding, online panhandling was basically a video and a website. And I had met these guys at something called the GDC, or the Game Developers Conference, which was then held in San Jose. And yeah, I was like, oh, I totally want in on this. You know, before that, I had worked on amateur game modifications for Quake 3 Arena and Unreal Tournament. I mainly did, really, really simple stuff like texture work, unwrapping UVWs on poly models to, make it so that other people could make textures for the models, stuff like that. And then I kind of graduated up into UI, UX stuff. And I had a little CD or video CD or DVD. I think I actually got to DVD. I can't remember. That I was kind of pimping out at the at the GDC, and I showed it to these guys that were leaving a game company and starting their own, and sent some money their way. And they were like, hey, this guy's already got stuff. Maybe we can have him on the team. And I got on the team, and good God. I mean, there's like no HR. It was like a bunch of children with way too much money. Office politics were insane. It was like Mean Girls, but a little worse than that. It was amazing. Like when you first get in there and you're like, because like I came from blue collar stuff. Like I worked for a newspaper, and before that I worked for billiard supply company delivering pool tables and air hockey tables to universities all around New England. So graduating to working on something creative, something I actually wanted to do instead of something I had to do, was like a dream come true. And then I realized it wasn't all chalked up to be. I mean, it was there was no such thing as work-life balance. It was whatever you did outside of work was directly reflective upon your progress or, career opportunities in work, and it became extremely exhausting, but there was a lot of fun, there was peaks and troughs. I mean, there were some fun bits. Going to the Catalina Island mixer was fun.
Did you go to Avalon?
Yes. That's the harbor.
I love Avalon.
Dude, that wet dock, man, that's a doozy. Because we were on the HMS Vomit Comet. The ferry they took us in decided that they'd ride the waves.
Is that the hydroplane?
This thing was hopping waves, and I don't think it was supposed to.
It wasn't the hydroplane then. The hydroplane, the front end will lift up, and you're doing like 30 knots.
Yeah.
At least it feels that way, but it just cuts right through everything.
Yeah, when we get off, they're like, I was really like, it's odd because all of my genetic ancestry is like seafaring people. I mean, my last name literally means fish. You'd think that like, the Viking in me and the Korean fisherman or whatever would be like fully acclimated to seafaring stuff, but no, I get seasick easily. And I get off this deck, and my boss is looking at me. He's like, "Wow, you're looking a little green around the gills. Maybe we should get you on, get you off the boat." So I cut to the front of the queue, get off the boat, and I'm on this wet dock in Avalon Harbor, just in time for the entire procession of people leaving the boat to see me go. Welcome to Avalon. Notice the fat kid puking. But
I always wanted to set up a practice there, but it never worked out.
Oh, it's a beautiful place, especially the Wrigley. Was it the Wrigley Memorial building up there at the top?
Yeah. What we're talking about? There's a big island. It's about 25 miles off the coast of Long Beach. You can see it from LA all the way down to Newport Beach, and there's a big city. It looks like a modernized Italian coastal city. It just rises right up in the cliff. There's a little bay in there. Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. And the only way to get to it is by boat or plane. And I used to fly out there. We had a plane, and I'd go out there periodically. So anyway.
That's one of the companies that I worked for took us out there multiple times. Which was kind of odd considering we hadn't even produced a game yet, and we were spending money like we were Blizzard.
Was that venture capital?
I believe so. There were VC, and then I can't remember how else they secured funding. There might have been a publisher. Yeah, there was the Chinese mafia. I mean, the Chinese company that funded after they ran out of funds. But I had long since been terminated from that company at that point. But
did they ever make anything rewarding?
Well, so they released a product, and it got pretty decent reviews. I mean, people are like, "Wow, Firefall, that's a great game," and then gone. It just all the servers are gone, everything. And I feel like I was like erased from the gaming industry, because every game that I worked on, save for like I think one, was a service, like games as a service, and they were just scrubbed from the internet. Like the servers are all offline. Like hell, the Defiance, the TV show / video game that I worked on, the show went off the air, and all the servers are closed, shut down for the game. So it's like, if I were to try to get a job in that industry again, they'd be like, yeah, can we see your portfolio of work? Like, nope. Unless you have a time machine.
Defiance, if I remember right, Defiance, wasn't that the one where some of the outcome of the TV show was based on what happened in the game?
Oh my God. Well, that was the idea. And I worked with some of the most amazingly talented game developers, that like designers and like people that make stuff work. When you're given nothing and you can MacGyver like a missile launcher out of a ballpoint pen. Like those are some of the people I worked for. And they were not given the opportunity to do what we had set out to, because that was the tagline: watch the show, play the game, change the world. Right. I felt terrible, because I guess I lied to people at the San Diego Comic-Con. We hollowed out the Hard Rock Cafe and like Defiance-ified it with the TV show and the game. And we actually had working TVs at the tables, and I'd go around and bother people while they were trying to eat, and hand them a video game controller and be like, hey, if you want on that TV, we've got our prototype game. If you'd like to look at Defiance and give it a few rounds, we'll have some fun while you wait for your meal. And they ask questions, and we had all these prepped answers. And so the idea is that there are events in the game that can change the outcome of elements in the show, and there might be things where certain heroic players might get called out in the show for certain events or whatever. Yeah, complete bovine scatology. I mean, it was terrible, because kind of like your do you remember that show Fringe?
Yes.
Yeah. God, that's one of my favorite shows. But like
one of the few things that JJ did almost right.
Yeah. Oh man. But like your Adega logo there, the hand, like how that was like one of the ciphers or one of the glyphs.
Yeah.
Well, one of the designers, this longtime designer guys, like came up with this idea of, well, why don't we put those glyphs just like how Fringe did it, but we do it in the show, in between commercial breaks or whatever. And then if you can, combine those glyphs or whatever, go to the website and use those glyphs to like translate something. They can be coordinates or something, or something, so that you can go to the game and get a reward for it. And I was like, that's got to be awesome. So as an encounter designer or encounter design, I think that's what my official title was. I was like all on board. I'm like, let's do this. Let's like, I'm looking at our editor to see how I could finagle things like putting in codes or geographic locations on the map, because you can actually set modules to like appear on the player's like world map or whatever. So it's like, oh, okay, we could do all sorts of really cool things with that. And the higher ups are like, well, if the show runs like out of sync, and we've got like all these other things that like could come into play, it wouldn't give a fair shake to the people that were like in different time zones watching the show, or they wouldn't watch the show. They just get the glyphs. They go to the website. Somebody would make basically this big long list of reasons not to do it. So they ended up not doing that. And I sat in these meetings, and I saw all these really hyper important people that were utterly useless explain, justify their jobs or try to. And at the same time, not a single one of them could kind of argue well, what exactly is the connection between the game and the world then, or the game and the show? And they couldn't do anything. And it was like, dude, we've got 3 points of media here. We have 3 windows into this universe. We have the TV show, we have the game, and we have the website. Let's make use of these. And they're like, shut up, you, back to the cubes, So
That didn't make me feel horrible.
Yeah.
yeah, well, it's either
Got a
that or
question for you.
oh, what's up?
June Wong has a $10 super chat and says, "Speaking of goodies in a box, question for the panel: any creative tips for rewards and bonuses that would fit in a book-sized media package when it is a priority to save on media postage? Since my book is not out yet, I will pass this along to Adega and Chris."
Chris would know more than me. All I do is I put images in my books, at least in the hardbounds. The other ones, I have other things in it. But well, I showed you what. Chris, you could talk about it if you want to, Chris. You may know better about answering this than I could.
Okay, I definitely know what not to do. Yeah, I went all out because I'm under the impression your first impression should be your best one. You only get one, so I threw everything in the kitchen sink. As far as tchotchkes go, as far as nice little collectible things, and I found things that worked and things that didn't. And oddly enough, it seemed to be the simpler it is, the more kind of traction it got. For example, I offered I think it was a 19 by, oh, was it a 27? Basically, a movie-sized double-sided poster in a rigid paper roll, and nobody grabbed it. Like it was a double-sided poster of the two variant covers for the book, and nobody grabbed it. So that one also was kind of a pain because you had mentioned trying to save money for media mail and shipping. And don't do that. If you're going to make a poster, either fold it and make it so that it can fit inside the book, or make it a small enough like art print or something that can fit inside the box itself with the book. Otherwise, you get nailed with something called like unstackable or odd shaped packaging or something by the shipping companies, and that goes double or quadruple when you try to ship internationally. So as a thing that you might want to avoid, a big caveat would be avoid the big posters, especially on your first go around. I'm sure maybe after additional books or whatever, if there's interest, the posters, in my opinion, serve as great promotional material. You go to a comic shop or a bookstore or whatever, and they just hang up the poster. It's awesome advertising, but unfortunately, in shipping, it's going to nail you, and people didn't seem to grab that one. But what they did grab was the prints. So the mini prints, whatever the dimensions of the book are, just match that with printing. Little prints that are representative of your variant covers or additional art that you want to provide. Another thing that I found was people really like ash cans. An ash can book is generally like compiled material, something that really wouldn't sell well on its own, but it's a nice supplementary book, like a mini book that has like additional art or alternative scenes or paneling or whatever, or even just notes. A foreword by somebody seems to definitely get some bites, as well as some people liked trading cards, some people liked acrylic magnets. I made acrylic standees, and those seem to be a pretty big hit. And standees are flat enough that you can fit them in whatever your box is for shipping your book. But here's something that I'm going to pop my camera on, so brace yourself. Here's something that I'm actually doing for book twos. Let's see if I can do this without making these things explode. So these are my kind of resin figurines of all of the characters. Thanks. We even got a nice little transparent composite resin figure that has an LED in it that lights up. But they're also NFC enabled. So the idea is that I don't think these, they're hollowed out, but there's actually a little cap on the underside with the name of the character or whatever. And it's got a nice little NFC or near field communication chip, like those Nintendo Wii. And you just swipe it on the back of your phone, and we can provide supplementary material in the form of PDFs or additional websites or something to that effect. Sky's the limit. But so you got these nice little figurines. And because the nature of my product is tabletop fantasy, these could double as play pieces as well.
Yeah, an Aslan as soon as I can.
Yeah, and the figures though, that's definitely something that you probably want to do later on. Fortunately, I've printed all these figures myself. I have a nice little resin 3D printer or printers, so I can do it relatively inexpensively. But yeah, the getting those sculpted and all that stuff for your first foray, like your first book out there, I wouldn't do it, mainly because you want to build the hype. And if you throw everything you've got out there, you're going to end up finding that there's little ROI on certain things that you've spent a lot of money on, and it ends up not being beneficial. So hopefully that helps.
Before
June
we
One
get,
says thank you for the great advice, Chris.
Oh, sweet.
Go ahead, Adega.
no, I just before we get what was I going to say? Before we get too far along, I wanted to but too far into, because there's a lot of the stuff with your comic book that I want to talk about, knowing that you're looking at a guy who had 100% fulfillment and all of his stock of comics are gone, and you have to get them through Amazon now, and it's a different cover. We'll get to that though. But tell us about, we're getting, you had work in the industry where it came to the, all the computer games and those type of things.
Mm-hmm.
When did this story start, and what inspired this story that we're going to talk about for the Infinite Tale?
Yeah. So long before the video game stuff, I was a dumb, dyslexic, dumpy kid, all of about 12 years old. And one summer, one of my friends, I think he was about a year or two younger than me, he's kind of a nerdy kid, and he was a good guy, really smart. And he's like, "Hey, we're bored. Saturday, my mom's taking me to the Pelham Public Library, and they've got the fantasy club. And I know you really like that movie Willow, so you want to go to that?" I was like, "Oh God, I'm gonna get beaten up, aren't I?" Like, this is one of those, like, I'm sneaking into a club that nobody should know about. Like, should I wear a disguise before I go in there? And I ended up going in there, and there was this like the kids. A lot of kids were older than me. Some were my age, some were younger. I was like, wow, that was kind of a surprise. And there's this like gorgeous librarian there who, she's super nice, and she's like, "Hey, I haven't seen you here before. Welcome." Blah 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 blah. And introduced me to Dungeons and Dragons. And again, I was barely literate. I was dyslexic. It was horrible. Like I was the anti-intellectual, know-it-all 12-year-old. That's dumb, So getting into that, I found, like, instantly I fell in love with it. I had a lot of understanding from the people who introduced it to me. They eased me into it. And I even had, what was really odd was the librarian had encouraged me to chronicle the adventures, write them down, because for her it was a means to kind of gouge or get like dues from the kids. Like once a month they'd get a newsletter from the library, and it was like $5 a month or whatever, and you get the newsletter. And like they, like, by that time I was drawing. I was a bit of an artist. I was the artsy kid, so I could draw things. So I would draw a couple of pictures for each of the episodes, or for each game session, and it would be accompanied by my writing chronicling the adventure from the perspective of my character. And it acted as a means to keep people up to speed between sessions, because if they were a month apart, what happened last time? Oh, just read the chronicle. So that got to the point where I was like, oh man, teenager, you got the ego, you got bitten by the I can do that too bug. And I started reading all the Dungeons and Dragons books, and this was long before the internet. And all of a sudden, like, AD&D 2.0 comes out, and 2.5. I'm like, oh my God, like I can't, like, the library couldn't get these books fast enough, and they were always taken out, and I was like Xeroxing pages. And it was, God, I remember getting kicked out of Barnes and Nobles once because I asked them where their Xerox machine was. I was such an idiot. I was like, yeah, where's your Xerox machine? They're like, excuse me? I'm like, oh no. Quick cut scene, you just see me flying out of the door. But yeah.
One of us.
So they I got all this stuff, and I was like, you know what? I could just make my own. And I was hit with that harsh reality of, no, you can't. I mean, they're far smarter people than you have been doing this for a longer period of time. your stuff is never going to stack up to this. But, I still tried, because when we're young, our souls aren't crushed yet by reality. So we're like, we still have that hope. So I was building this thing. And by the time I got to high school, I remember we had this terrible, like the Pelham high school system. It was insane. They treated us like criminals. We had compulsory voluntary service. Yeah, try to figure that one out. Where we had to have 100 and something hours of community service hours, or they wouldn't let us graduate. So I was like, what? Like, should I be like in an orange jumpsuit picking up rubbish on the side of the road? So the librarian there, the one that had got me to do the chronicles and stuff, she's like, you know what? The other guy that was the DM that was older than you, he's off to college now. Nobody's here babysitting these kids in the community. The internet doesn't exist yet. There's no Xbox 360 lobbies to for 12-year-olds to go to. So she's like, look, if you have your game, and babysit these kids or whatever, you could test out your game here, and I'll just use that as community service hours. I'll sign off on it. I was like, sweet. So they became my beta testers, and nothing is as brutal as the honesty of anonymous 12-year-olds. When your rules don't work, man, they let you know, and they're not shy about it. So I got a crash course in separating yourself from your work, and it's probably I'm super grateful for that opportunity, because it definitely prepared me for the professional world, where people are looking at your stuff and you spent 3 weeks working on something and then they just throw it out because it's garbage. But it's
right.
You got to get yourself used to that. You can't just jump in. You have to boil that frog. Otherwise it's really going to hit you hard. And when you're a teenager or a little kid or whatever, fine, you can deal with it and grow from it. And that's what I did. Is we refined rules. We had things that worked. We had things that didn't work. And over the years, I think it took a decade of these testers to get this game into a playable state. And while the game was being played, we had different groups of kids come in. Some came and left. God, it was a decade, so of course we're going to have some like a Menudo effect. We're going to have the Ricky Martins coming in and the other kids leaving. Right. And we had interesting like stories out of it. Like what I did, because again, this was before like the internet was a big thing, is I had the entire birth of the Pelham Public Library books at my disposal. And, I loved the Lord of the Rings. I loved Dungeons and Dragons, but I wanted to make my own. So I looked for books on obscure folklore, things like Finland's Kalevala, or the Volsung saga of Iceland, all the Scandinavian stuff as well, the Norse, the Anglo-Saxons, even Beowulf and stuff like that. And I started looking into Welsh and Celtic mythology. And that was where I got a lot of my story ideas from, where when I was building the game world, again, Infinitale is a portmanteau of infinite and tale, the idea that the story can just go on forever. And it did for a decade, good God. But I started, when I was creating the game, injecting these story elements, these mythological elements from a myriad of different cultures, but a lot of it was from the Welsh and the Celtic. And our initial game story focused around the Cad Gatho, or the War of the Trees, which was a highly disputed by historians story about this guy Gwythian, who kind of picked a fight with a lord and had a bunch of trees go and kick the lord's ass. But there was a lot more to it. There was allegory. There were elements missing. There were things that were added in later, things that were removed, and the story itself went through a lot of changes because it was through oral traditions rather than just written down. And right. I took elements of that with Celtic myths, the Tua Danan, the Fovera or the Fomorians, or the Fierbulg, things like that, and started adding them into the story. And therefore, it helped distinguish it slightly from, at the time, Dungeons and Dragons Las Vegas approach to fantasy, where magic was this technology that was ubiquitous. It was like, here's your +3 toothbrush of cavity fighting. So we started with that, and all of the characters, the playable characters, were kind of handed these story elements, and where the story went from there was in a way, I guess I kind of cheated telling the story because I presented them with the problems and they solved it. And I didn't have that kind of the hardships of trying to write through the paradigms of other character or the mindsets of other characters, because it was them, doing these actions. It's kind of like when George Lucas tried to write romance, and the guy has never been in any romantic scenario in his life. Right. And he's like, yeah, I don't like the desert. It's got sand. It gets into everything. It's not like you're soft. Like, dude, seriously? Like, I went to the theater with that, and I was watching it with my sister, and she mouthed that as he was saying it. We just started laughing. But like, go with what you know, and clearly that guy does not know about that. But I'm not a woman, and I had the luxury of having female players, and what we see here in the cast of characters, Queen Ashlyn. The character on the far left there, that was played by a girl. Like, she had her own story, and all of the actions and all of the motivations were solely from her as an actor. Part of the tabletop experience was improvisation and collaborative storytelling. So I kind of was able to utilize these players as a crutch, and we were like 13, 14, 15 at the time, and it was amazing kind of getting that out there. So I chronicled all the stories. And then when I graduated high school, I went off to university and I put that thing away. I was like, dude, like I can't keep doing this. I got to focus on my schoolwork, which sucked because I had like 2 jobs and all this other stuff. And then when I got out of that, I got into the newspaper job, and I was working nights and I was super busy with that. And then I got into the gaming industry. And again, I was like, geez, like I don't have time to even, think for myself half the time. It's, where are we going? What am I eating? Okay. Yeah. Let's go back to work. Crunch time. So when I finally left the gaming industry, I think it was like 2014, I looked at all of the stuff that I had lugged across the world. I mean, I literally Japan, Australia, parts of California, and it all kind of came back. I just spent a lot of money lugging a bunch of dead weight back to New England. With all these notes and stuff. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, my job, I left the creative field, and I felt like I was creatively constipated. Like, it was like, damn, my job is stable now. I love the people that I work with. Like, it's a nice environment, and I enjoy what I'm doing. I leverage my UI UX working in web design. So, it's not creative, but it's not stifling or boring. But at the same time, I like that same kind of creative outlet that I had when I was in the gaming industry was just, it's hard to downgrade from that. So
right.
I opened up the storage containers, and I was reading through this stuff, and I was like, this stuff's like almost 30 years old, some of it. I'm like, this is actually a pretty decent story. Holy crap, So I started writing it down or translating it, because it was in Microsoft Works files. So I was converting it over to modern word processing. And I was like, man, I should really make this tabletop game. I got to make this tabletop game. And I was talking with one of my friends who was an engineer at Blizzard, and we're talking about how games like World of Warcraft were successful right out of the gate. Like, how did World of Warcraft already have like a pre-hype scenario? Like people were already champing at the bit before that the gates of Azeroth were opened. How is that? Like, how did it get so? How did it have that much momentum? And the reason why is because people already were introduced to the world prior to World of Warcraft. There were like multiple games before it. The characters were familiar, and the races and the aesthetic. And I was like, well, how the hell can I do that? And he's like, well, dude, you can draw. You can write. Like, why don't you just write novels or something? I don't know. I'm not that talented to write a novel, man. He's like, well, what about like comics or something? Because something to get people introduced into this universe before you actually release your tabletop game. And I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. I don't know how to do this. So I reached out to a couple of comic book peoples. This guy Zen over at High Concept Media Properties, or HCMP, was like, oh, dude, we could totally help you out. And we spent a couple of years, bashing our heads together. And I had some concept artist friends that I knew from the industry and on social media, and friends of friends and all this stuff, that were working on helping to define the art direction, or the kind of the style guide for the tabletop game. And it was like, yeah, maybe we can get them involved over in the comic book series as well. And they did. I mean, we had a variant cover by Genzo Man, who, I mean, dude, you just type in Genzo Man in Google Image, and like the guy's work's everywhere. And then another one from Michelle Hefner, who has worked over at Riot Games and also at Blizzard, did concept art, and yeah, amazingly talented artists. And I was like, yeah, let's do this. And we looked at what session or what collection of stories would work best, and I was like, well, let's start with the first one. Even though the games were played out of order, the origin of the Fae people of the Infinitel universe, that game series, or what we call a saga, a series of game sessions,
right.
That was actually played after the one of the later sagas. We had one called Empires of Ruin, which was basically takes place on a different world, and it has your kind of a lot of your like Viking and kind of traditional D&D-ish tropes to it. Whereas the War of the Tree saga is more of like the origin myth or the origin stories of the Elfar or the elf people, and how they got to that other world. So yeah, wow, I'm really long-winded. I apologize, guys.
Don't worry about it.
This is great. This is great.
Sweet.
Now, just you were commenting about these people. That's something that I've noticed, and that's why I hang out with you guys an awful lot. Because if you don't find me here with Loki, I'm over with Chris and Vinny and a few other people. That the community is more than willing to help. It's not one of those ones where you're going to find someone climb the ladder and they're going to wave at you from the top of the ladder and not help you out, just, ridicule or give me money for this or that. I'm happy to financially support, but the community that Chris is talking about and that we hang out with, such very, very giving, helpful people. It is a community that wants everyone to be uplifted. For the most part, I haven't seen any selfishness in there.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's part of another kind of motivation for me making this comic was, and I mean, I don't know how deep I want to get into this, but like, I got real depressed. I'd say around just as I left the gaming industry back in 2014, where it seemed like all of my hobbies were like hijacked by these ideologues that didn't share kind of my views on things, and it turned into this like they didn't want me as their customer anymore.
Everyone in the chat will agree with you that everyone here that I've seen has had that experience to one degree or another, whether it just be they are fans of a story to actual creators. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, well like it became damn depressing, where it was like, well, all of like the mainstream stuff was just garbage now. There were just things I didn't want to see. There were, everybody's now an istophobic, whatever. You got to put rainbows everywhere, all this stuff. Apparently orcs are racist, can't have dark elves anymore, like all this stuff. And it was like, this is so dumb. And it made me retreat out of, it made me kind of look backwards instead of forward. Like I was looking more at nostalgia, looking at all the old stuff. And that was where the nostalgia came from, this 30-year-old stories that I've had sitting in a storage bin, just waiting to be told. So I was like, all right, let's do that. And then I've noticed there are other people that felt the same way. And it's like, who am I to, I'm a customer as well. Like I want to read their books. I want to see their media. I want to see their art. Whatever I can do to help, I'll do it. It's not just me. I'm just one cog in this machine.
He speaks the truth. Just to let you know, the books that are coming out that you guys are able to get from me, the only reason why they're available is I was stuck working with Amazon trying to get my images to fit for book covers. And a friend, Vinny, he was on here a month or so ago. He said, talk to Chris. And Chris said, yeah, I'll do it. I didn't have to bait him, didn't have to offer any, just, yeah. And just in a heartbeat, he has these things done. So I sent him copies of the books as payment. As I do owe you a lot. Ooh. But it's just freely given in the group. It's just amazing how
happy to help, man.
Yeah, that this community really is a helpful community. It's a wonderful thing. Cool. All right, now enough of all that. I want to start talking about your books. Besides that 3D printed Aslan, which I need to get. I'm going to show you. I showed you guys at the beginning the box. This is wow. My camera's way off, huh? Let's see if I
Oh,
can get it to work. Come on, here we go. Oh, come on. There we go. Okay, this is the original cover. You can't get those anymore. His entire stock was sold.
oh yeah.
Everybody loves this. I've read it. It's wonderful. But you're saying this is just the beginning. How many books do you have planned?
Well, we already have the so all the sagas have already been written, and I've been converting them from like prose and screenplay formats to comic format. And the War of the Tree saga is 10 books. So they're all there's no winging it. It's already done. It's been sitting there, and yeah, it's ready to go. It's just a matter of time getting the artists to make the stuff.
Now, just to show you how much of a class act he is, you saw the standees, these little boxes. He's got 2 characters. There's more coming. I haven't taken them out deliberately because I don't want to assemble them. But it will look like this front and back, and it stands about this tall, and they're wonderful little characters. But also, he sent not just the cards, but the card carrier as well, and the little stories of each of the characters on there. And some of the bonus things that you get, like this is an alternate cover, I would assume, isn't it? There's some stickers that are in here that I have. And then, of course, because she's my favorite character, my personal favorite.
Oh yeah.
Male gaze there for you, Loki.
Giggity.
Yeah.
We do a comic book show. We used to do it on Tuesdays. We do it on Wednesday now, called the Comic Book Roundtable. And at the end, we usually do a segment called The Male Gaze that has the most beautiful women in comic book history in poses or in cosplay or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
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 We'll
Well,
have to do one with her one night.
yeah. Well, he's got plenty of images for it, but when I saw just the indie page, I think you were half fulfilled when I purchased mine, but it was completely you sold out everything, which I think is absolutely wonderful, and it's a goal that a lot of indie people wish they could reach.
Oh yeah.
His stuff is top quality. His next box, he started showing. I don't know if you're still going to stick with it, but the next shipping box is even better.
Oh yeah.
But for I mean, maybe you can explain about that, but also the shipping difficulties that you've had.
Oh my God. Yeah. Ouch. So I made I did some research, looked around from various shipping companies, UPS, USPS, FedEx, DHL, and I got pricing from them. I'm like, hey, this is how much it weighs, this is how big it is, how much is this going to cost, and if it goes here, 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 or here. So I got all the the shipping kind of logistics all figured out when I was setting up the Indiegogo page, and that's definitely something that I would strongly urge everybody to do when they're doing one of those things is calculate how much it's going to cost you to ship this thing and then put a little extra in, because there's that in handling element that's you. I mean, you have to pay yourself as well because you're an employee. And that includes, driving to places or getting the nice boxes or whatever. That's all part of that. So, I wanted to make sure that it wasn't an exorbitant fee, but at the same time, I didn't want it to end up costing me. So, I factored it all in. And that was all for naught, because thanks to our something I don't want to get into as far as our politics go, but our shipping and all of this stuff more than quadrupled over the course of this campaign, which was only 60 days. And within 60 days, it went over 4 times what I had originally was given for an estimate. And it got to the point where I had this one backer who was in New Zealand, and it cost $150 to ship his, like, he had ordered the ultimate bundle. He wanted everything, including those posters that I had warned about earlier. So I got it all together and I shipped it out there, and only USPS would ship. Everybody else is like, nope, we're not shipping to that. We just don't offer shipping to New Zealand anymore because of the coof. So I ship it out there, and then about a week later, I see in my own mailbox the package that I shipped to New Zealand with it denied, it got rejected at the border. So that was $150 that I wouldn't get back. So I contacted the backer and was like, "Do you want to cancel this? You know, appreciate blah blah." It's like, no, you keep it. You know, I backed it. Like I backed you. I didn't. You know, the perks are that perks. I didn't. You know, it's not a given that I get them. And I was like, wow, that's super understanding of you. So I blew another $150 a couple months later when their prime minister got whatever that was out of her backside and allowed American products to come and ship to her. So it cost me like $300 to ship like a $20 worth of merchandise.
Talk about fulfillment.
Well, yeah.
That's crazy, and
Yeah.
that's so cool that they were that understanding, and I completely understand why you went ahead and shipped to them. I not to take anything off of this. I ordered these 2 bonuses for these people that were helping me out when I first got started, and one of them lived in the UK, one of them lived in Texas. The manufacturing company decided that the one that was shipping to the UK, they were going to make here in the US and ship to the UK. The one that was going to Texas, they made in the UK and they shipped that to Texas. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding.
That makes so much sense.
This was Teespring, and they'd sent me a warning a couple weeks before that and said, because manufacturing's so difficult right now, things may be delayed. We may have to make things in different factories than normal. And I was like, well, okay, but I never expected that. And I ordered these just minutes apart, that they would make one in the UK and ship to the US. And they did that by like, by boat. They shipped it by boat, so it took like a month to get here. And the other one they made in the US and shipped it to the UK. That one got there. The one that went by boat, it never arrived.
Oh man.
But the one that shipped from the US to the UK got there. It was so backward and absolutely up its own butt, all because of the coup.
Good God. Yeah, that would piss me off.
Well, as a side, saying that, getting back to where I was, and I'm not trying to push anything, or rush anything, but I did show you that his comic was sold out, and Chris Persia put a link into Amazon, and this is brilliant. You don't see this with a lot of indie people. You want to show them what you did? With the for your comic book. Now that they can't get the one from indie, they can get it through Amazon, because I don't have one of those yet. Oh
yeah. So after the crowdfunding campaign was over, and sold out of all my inventory, I had the option to keep it in what Indiegogo refers to as in demand indefinitely. The only problem with that is, what in demand does is it allows you to purchase it after the fact and continually generate revenue or whatever, but it's a sporadic, a backer here, a backer there, or an order here or whatever. And every one of those orders, obviously I'm gonna get it out the door ASAP. I don't want that thing to linger. It's I guess it's the Yankee in me, but like when somebody gives me money, I'm on the hook, so I got to deliver. So the ADD part also kicks in, or the OCD, and it's like, look, man, you got to get this out the door. Like I can't get to sleep at night until that thing's at the shipper, and it just became just logistically kind of painful. So I thought, well, what else could I do now that the crowdfunding campaign portion of this is over? And I thought, oh well, let's leverage Kindle Direct Publishing, Amazon's on-demand printing solution. And I worked with Adega here on his covers, and I thought, well, that actually got me looking into Amazon as a viable print-on-demand service. But I wanted to know, like, I wasn't expecting to get the same level of quality that I got from the crowdfunding version, because the whole point of crowdfunding is that you're giving them that white glove treatment. If they're a collector or whatever, they should be getting the best of the best. Like that's how crowdfunding works. They're overpaying. I mean, honestly, like I feel bad asking for some of the prices, for these backing tiers, but a lot of that was because it was about funding the R&D elements as well, or additional layers of production that a lot of people don't see, commissioning art and stuff like that. That all went into the crowdfunding campaign. And that's why those books were more expensive. And obviously the quality was top notch, man. I mean, I went back and forth with printers. It's like $9.99, So when I consulted Amazon's KDP for their print on demand, I was expecting a floppy. I was expecting, okay, well, now that the crowdfunding part's over, let's give them like the staple bound floppy version and make it down to a more reasonable price. And to my surprise, Amazon's print quality was really good. They had the same thick cardstock covers. It was perfect bound. It had that nice square spine where you could put the title of your book and all that stuff on it. So when you slide it into the shelf, it fits nicely with the other books of that series. And the interior, it was that nice satin, semi-gloss, which was what I used in the crowdfunding book. The only difference is their interior covers aren't full duplex printing, where you can't print on the inside of the covers, so it's blank white. But that's the only distinction between them, was that lack of printing on the interior covers. So I created the Amazon edition for people who missed out on the campaign itself as an option to ship out, especially to international people who are interested, who are in New Zealand, or Australia, or somewhere, and I'm not going to be paying $150 to ship this thing out.
Right.
You can use Amazon's delivery to get them, especially if you have Prime or something. It's free. We put it out there, and I contacted an artist friend to get an additional cover. So that way, the people who backed it got like the crowdfunding version, where they got like cool prints, additional perks, and all this stuff. But then when the crowdfunding is over, you can get like a retail version, or in this case, the Amazon version, which doesn't have all those bells and whistles, but you can still have access to that book.
And it's not costing me.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's not costing me. I don't have to keep inventory because it's all print on demand. I'm not shipping it anymore. It's all being shipped on Amazon.
Right.
So anybody that's doing that, I would definitely encourage, instead of using in demand, just leverage Amazon services.
You got one handy to show everybody? Because I'm actually, I think I like the Amazon cover a little bit better, but it has Aslan on it, so I do have a problem, folks. Sorry.
Well, let's see if I can. I only have the what do they call it? The proof version. So here's the standard version that was out for crowdfunding, and it has this nice thing on the back there with the Andarak, or the Oak of Ages, with a nice, can't really see it there, but there's a language that's referenced in the book. And if you have one of those trading cards, or if you go to the website, you can translate that, get a little message out of it. Be sure to drink your Ovaltine. In addition to that, there was the Michelle Hefner cover. This is one of the variants. So it's the same book, but during the crowdfunding, we had this nice, wow, that's really blown out. But it's her take on it, and again, it has Andarak on the back and a different message. And then finally, the Genzo Man one, which people kind of liked, and this one also again just a variant of the crowdfunding one with its own message on the back. And unfortunately, I got this terrible bar across the side, but this is the Amazon edition done by Nelia Hale. And and unfortunately, it doesn't have the Andarak on the back, but it's got a nice little ad for book 2. And and it's all the same interior, except for we get a nice white cover here, whereas the crowdfunded version has that nice duplex printing. And to make up for that, the difference in the printing pages, we immortalized all of the backers. So all the people that backed during the campaign, they're now part of the thank you page on the Amazon version.
I'm on there. Yay!
Yep.
That is awesome. I love the third one. That third one you put up there, the one right before that one, that is, I love that. I absolutely, the dragons, because I'm a huge dragon, obviously. I love dragons. And yeah, that's beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful.
Thanks. Yeah, if you want, I can show off some of the some of the other art, if that's cool.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, please.
All right.
I said we're gonna harass you. This is your hour. Well, we're getting close to time, but let's see your art. No, don't worry about it.
All right. Let me let's see if I can do my wizarding work here. So a couple of the concepts that we have. So here is the world map of Esperia, which is the fantasy world that where the trees takes place. It's the Fey world. We've got the nice little island rock here, and this is the continent of Fofla, and these are all of the wonderfully Celtic named places that are difficult to pronounce, like the sovereignty of Tir Higothen, which is the land of the tree, which is where our story takes place in the first book, and Heffenheide or Flockhaven, the capital city. And and then there's some ruins over here, the Forbidden City. And throughout the course of the 10-book saga, we get to explore these lovely locales. So,
and it all matches with the game too.
Oh yeah. This is all part from the game as well. And let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, some of the game stuff, some of the older stuff, not as impressive, but a couple of the Alfar weapons. We have the Cletho, which is their double-bladed sword, the Huerin, which is kind of like a nightstick or like a tonfa with blades. It's the elfin knife style, and then the Gleif itself, which is their lance weapon, one of the little pole arms. And then obviously we've got the concept art. Yeah, these were done by Zed Edge. We were originally contemplating making her showing her pregnant version here. So we can see here, she's got her alternate, because that's part of the story, is that the elves, they don't really reproduce. These are immortal people that live basically eternally young, for pretty people with problems. It would be like, Los Angeles and nobody ever ages. Unfortunately, what kicks off or sets events in motion is that she gets pregnant and she gives birth, and suddenly all these other kids or pregnancies start happening. And it's like, what do you do in a world where nobody dies of old age and suddenly there's all these babies coming? So yeah. And some other notes and stuff. This was actually what was handed to our comic artists when we were working on the book initially. Here are the weapons. Here's some embellishments, some of the costume notes. Notice things like all the Elfar are bare feet or barefooted. There's not any ferrous metals here. Nothing is iron or steel. There's no silver, and there's good reason for that. It's kind of not a good thing for the Fae or for the elves. See, show you a sneak peek of some characters for book 2.
Here we go.
Yeah, we have a character here, Aoife. And unfortunately, yes, I chose Celtic names, so they sodomized the English alphabet or the Roman alphabet. I mean, that does not look like it says Aoife, but that's her name, Aoife. And Deirdre, a character that we meet in the first book, but you don't really know her name or anything. She's kind of a midwife character. And then Nessa, looks like she's definitely not an Elfar, and yeah, she's built a little differently. And let's see what else. Oh yeah, and Onan, another character who's definitely not Elfar, and a character whose name isn't given. We just have a title here. Who's another Elfar who looks kind of important. She, no spoilers.
Crowns usually do that.
Yeah, and she's got this weird scepter here with this weird-looking thing face. So yeah, so there's that.
Teasers.
Looking kind of evil there.
Yeah, here are here's that Genzo Man piece that you.
Dude, yes, that is absolutely beautiful.
The 3-headed Hydra, or it actually has 7 heads, but yeah, this is an early concept of the Forbidden City that takes place in the book. What else do we have? Let's see. Here's the Michelle Hefner one. We've got Ashlyn here dreaming or whatever. We've got the Ring of Moon and Kaylin in the foreground. And then here's the Nail of Hail image, where we've got kind of the duality, the two stories, where we've got her looking off into these ruins, and him looking off into this weird campsite with like raggedy tents and looks like a forest or wilderness. And then here's some game-related images. So this was a cover for the section of the narrator's guide. So in the Infinitale fantasy role-playing game system that I've developed, the dungeon master or the game master is called the narrator, and the whole literary or story themes. And this is actually, it's kind of funny. It's actually a kind of a riff on me and all of the players at the time, or one of the groups of players at the Pelham Public Library. So
there you go.
That was a character. This is one of their favorite NPCs. This guy who's a dwarf, and this is all of the players' characters. This is what they looked like, or what their characters looked like, and they'd sit at this conference table, and they play with the little weird figurines and the funny shaped dice. And yeah, that's so that's something that will be in the game as well. Here's another one. Unfortunately, have some elements that I didn't remove yet, but a scene from one of the stories or from one of the adventures where somebody doesn't meet a happy end. And then here's another one of my favorites. This is the Yholsafa, the Seelie, the Light Elves, which we don't really seem to mention in the War of the Trees. But as you can tell, she's definitely a spiritual leader of some sort, kind of a high druidess. And you can't really make it out here, but there's an Andarak pendant sitting right on her throat.
Very cool.
Elves, thanks. And then little sneak peek of book 2's alternate cover here, where Ashland's not looking too happy there. Sorry. And what the hell is that?
Right.
So, yeah, she's not having a good day. And let's see. Oh, one thing I missed. Some of the part of the game. These are some of the class cards, because part of the game leverages cards in addition to pen and paper stuff. So it's not technically like a card battle game, but it's not fully like the whole traditional tabletop stuff. Utilizes a lot of cards, and these are the spellcaster classes. You've got your magus, your priest, your druid, your shaman, and your warden. It's kind of like your fighter mage, your low magic person who doesn't actually cast spells. They use alchemy and herbalism and enchantments. And then your religious kind of class. This is kind of the priests of the elves. They don't actually have priests. They have druids or seethers. And she's got this tulpa of a great horned owl, which is kind of cool. They kind of like become one with the nature of that world. And then a priest who's kind of a bibliophile. The priests in this game are kind of your bookmakers, so they're pretty cool in that regard. And then the magi, or the magus, is more of a scholastic spellcaster. So
when is the I think me and Adega are both like, oh my god, when is this coming out?
Yep.
Oh yeah, here's well, I'm hoping to I'm not entirely sure, depending on how expedient I can get the War of the Trees saga out, because the War of the Trees introduces you to, like, there's this dichotomy in the Infinitale universe. It's kind of like magic versus mundane, or magic versus rational, or non-magic, essentially. And there's two worlds in this in this universe. There's the world of Asperia, which is your Fey world, and something bad happens to it. I can't get into too many specifics, because you'll have to read about it in the War of the Trees. But the Fey, the magic creatures, are forced to migrate, or emigrate from this world into a mundane world called Munadea. And that Munadea is reminiscent of our own world back in like the Dark Ages, kind of the Viking Age. And it doesn't have magic. This whole magic fantasy stuff doesn't exist. So when you get this invasion force of magical Fey creatures versus these people who are kind of more religiously driven, or they have schools of thought that are more based on reason and practicality rather than spells and monsters. And that's kind of where the conflict lies, is you have these kind of, like Warcraft had its orcs versus humans. This has the Fae versus the mundane, or the earthly people. And
we have a member chat. You don't see those in the StreamYards, but Loki has it highlighted there. Someone's saying something.
So Ghost Rider, who's been a member for 4 months and is a warrior of Asgard, thank you so very much, Ghost Rider, says, this game looks dope as fuck. This is based off of books. I need all these things now, please.
Oh, damn. well, the Saga of the War of the Trees is about the Fae, and then the Saga of the Empires of Ruin is about the mundane, and it's kind of the introduction of these two conflicts. And I'm hoping I can get both sagas out, both 10-book sagas, before I launch the game. But because I'm by myself, essentially, like, this is a one-man army. I mean, I've got people helping me, but it's coming out of my pocket. And I got a full-time job in addition to this. So I don't know what the reality of getting that second saga out before I launch the game, because the game requires a lot more love and care than the stories. And not to say that the stories are being neglected, but there's a lot less going into the stories. It's more of a, set up the books, get the logistics, get the printing and all that stuff done. Whereas the game is like, we've got to, before this thing even gets committed to print, we still have to refine certain rules or the way certain things are presented. And even though I did beta test this for like 10, 15 years, there's still rough edges that I'd like to get kind of sorted out before we commit this to print, especially if it's going to be, first edition, and it's suddenly like, dude, that you left like a major hole in there, or, something went really wrong.
We're going to have to talk backstage one of these days about maybe you need another type of character like a blood witch in the story. But anyway.
well, there is, so the magic system has sanguis magic, which is, of the elements, the body, and then the body consists of,
it's a little different than you think. I have to tell you what a blood witch is before you start imagining things. It's not anything that you've heard before.
Is it?
Yeah,
is it like,
everything I do, I try and make as unique as possible. So I'll tell you sometime. It's
cool.
Spoiler stuff.
Yeah. So here are the weapons cards. Like, there's equipment cards, there's ability cards, maneuver cards, all that stuff. And I employed something similar to what I learned when I was working in video games, which is the Curel system. Curel stands for common, uncommon, rare, epic, and legendary, which is kind of the quality level of your the 5-star or whatever. And I found that when I played traditional tabletop D&D, there really wasn't much of a loot chase. Like, there really wasn't much of a, like, you got a cool item and you held on to that for dear life. Like, that was it. That thing is there forever.
Right.
I got the slippers of spider climbing, and I ain't giving those things up for anything. But in what that does is it stagnates kind of your motivation. Your core game loop tends to rely heavily on things that get stale quickly, i.e. The ability for somebody to read ahead or metagame or whatever. And they're like, oh man, like, so what we've done with this system is we've employed a bit of a loot chase, and you've got these cards, and the quality is both in color and in
cane.
Oh yeah, yes, yeah. This is a legendary hollow foil card that we created especially for Sugar Chris. Sugar Chris is a YouTuber, and when we were considering that one of the perks in the crowdfunding campaign would be to allow a backer, if they backed that very limited perk, to get a piece of equipment. They could name it, create it, whatever, based within the rules, within the confines of the rules, and have that become a part of the cards that when they get printed for the game itself, when it gets released, here you go, here's your card. And I made up one on the spot for Sugar Chris and gave him the Sugar King, which is a legendary pole arm of some sort that looks like a giant sucker or a giant lollipop. And it has some enchantments attached to it, and it's pretty powerful. So and I mean, so we have this section over here, which I know a lot of people aren't fans of, Breath of the Wild, the latest Legend of Zelda game, did it, and I think they did it kind of poorly in their communication of the kind of the durability being very ambiguous. Whereas what we have here in this system is that based on how much damage you do, like if you inflict more than 5 points of damage with your attack, you have to make a durability check, and everything starts with a pristine condition. And if you roll your d20 and if you can get above an 8, then the weapon doesn't degrade. If you get 8 or below, then the weapon degrades 1 layer, and eventually it goes from worn, I can't remember what the interim was, broken, and then destroyed. And when it's in these middle stages, you can actually repair it. And there's class abilities where after battle you can fix your weapon essentially and keep it. And then materials will actually affect the durability score that you have to beat, as well as quality. So as you can see here, like you saw him here, you have to get above a 6. Whereas this stiletto, it's a common stiletto. You got to get above a 14, and it's made out of crude iron. So yeah, and then certain weapons actually grant special maneuvers or abilities. So you could grab the hook and trap card, which is a maneuver that you can use during combat. So a hook and a trap is you can actually hook or grapple somebody's weapon with your weapon, or possibly their arm or something, disabling that for that turn, where it forces them to actually have to free themselves from it. So yeah, and then trapped or hooked characters actually are susceptible to other abilities. So you could finish them thusly or justly, if you can get them successfully hooked.
And you got this all from a bunch of pre-teens and teenagers.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, we had the Pelham Public Library. Just that was our playground. My playground. And one of the things is I was a dumb kid, and I learned early on in tabletop role playing games, the world is only as big as the knowledge of the dungeon master, or in my case, the narrator. And if I was dumber than all the other kids, it was a kind of a detriment to them. They're like, well, that's not how that works, or
right.
Like if they knew about herbalism and I didn't, I better damn well grab a book on herbalism before the next meeting. So I did a lot of that and cataloged all the notes, and I became a huge nerd. But I'm hoping that's for the betterment of the product. I guess I can show some other stuff here.
Just a few more. We usually conclude. We don't hold people up for very long on these nights. But yeah, just a few more.
Oh, hey, sorry. Yeah. I got a big mouth.
No. If there was a problem, or there was an issue, we would have ended it earlier. But there's no real hard and fast rule, but we kind of keep it.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. We all got lives.
Yep. Loki's getting hungry.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Your secret's out.
Yeah. Here's a card of one of the characters featured in book 2. We're actually going to make this a jumbo card, kind of like that one you had of Ashlyn.
Yeah.
The nice badonkadunk.
Yeah.
This will be given out when we start up the mailing list. If you sign up for the mailing list and then order or back one of the physical perks, that basically you can get this card as well. No additional charge. Here's the nice badonkadunk.
There it is.
There it is.
Oh yeah. And then one of my favorites. This was Miriam Nova. She just gave me this free pick. Like she originally gave me this, and she sent it to me physically. Like I actually got it in the mail. I was like, oh my God, it's a big poster size, done with markers. And I was like, oh, I want to make this something in the game or something in the campaign. So people who were following on, at Infinitail Comic on Twitter, I reached out and randomly gave out a very limited stock of these limited cards, a holofoil card of this. I colored it. So I don't know if I vandalized her work or if I helped bring it to more vibrance. But yeah, that's me coloring Miriam Nova's amazing drawing of Queen Ashlyn. And then here's one that people haven't seen really yet. And this is from the second book. This is Kaylin Blackhand. And
Yeah, I saw this making me really, really curious.
Yeah. So he's got his nice glaive here, and he's got this weird thing on his arm, and he's got the Book of Dragons, and pages are flying everywhere. And yeah, he looks happy. And then here's a page from book 2. So nice little window, and yeah, something's happening. But yeah, I don't want to get into the, I guess.
Yeah, no spoilers, because you have gold there, my friend.
Woohoo! Thank
Absolutely.
you. Yeah,
and I appreciate you taking the time for sharing this with us. I can't tell you how much I enjoy your work, and also promoting you in part because I owe you so much of what you've done for me.
Oh, well, hey, no problem, man. I mean, happy to help.
No, it's you're a good man, and you deserve big following and big success with this. This should be huge.
Oh, thanks. Well, I'm hoping so. I mean, this is 30 plus years in the making, and it's like the story of the War of the Trees it's odd because I got some people to review it, and what they were taking away, they took away from the story some very modern, like topical things, like authoritarianism and talking about what governments are doing and all this stuff. And it's odd because I guess the story itself has some timelessness to it, because this is almost about a story about children who have to take that first step into adulthood, where they're forced to leave like constraining authoritarian or restrictive parents and, fly or sink or swim,
That's one of the things I've had. A lot of people have asked me about this. We've talked about it on Vinny's show a few times, but the key to having good creative art is it has to be timeless. If it isn't timeless, it will disappear with the next generation. It will just fade away into nothing. How many TV shows or different things were all based on simple trends, a set of eternal principles. And if someone could pull modernity out of something that you thought of or worked on 30 years ago, then it shows that this is timeless, and it should be enjoyed for something that's going to last.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping, because I a lot of this, I mean, it's granted I did research all that stuff from the library, but there was also I pulled from 90s cartoons, like adventure cartoons, like things like the Pirates of Darkwater. I don't know if you remember that, or Disney's Gargoyles, or Conan the Adventurer. That's the fantasy that I loved as a teenager or as a kid. And I'm hoping I don't see that anymore. Now everything is so political, and we've got rainbow this, or let's have a dinner party, or let's go to prom. And it's dude, who the hell is this for?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. No, exactly. I'm right there with you. Who the hell is this for?
Yeah, it just seems like a bunch of angry people who never got asked to prom, or never had was invited to somebody's party, who just want to vicariously live out through hijacked characters. And it's dude, that's not entertaining. Where's the story? Your characters aren't likable. Nobody can be identified with. So yeah, I mean, I'm rambling, but that's where I got really depressed when I started seeing, the Hellfire Gala or whatever. I'm like, what the hell is this?
Right.
But yeah, if interested, I've been working on adding a lore section to the InfiniteTaleChronicles.com website, and it provides a little bit more information, shows the map of the world. I got a lexicon there where we've got the language of Slerith, which is that nice little runic language, so you can translate it if you get the book. And then I also have a glossary, because there's a lot of funky terms in there.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thanks.
Chris, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. This was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chris, for coming on, for sharing all this with us, for getting a sneak peek behind everything and finding out about the game. I want the game. I love board games. I love D&D, so that's right up my alley. And I want the books. I want the books. We got to get the books. So guys, if you haven't already, Chris Persia put a link up in chat. It is pinned in the chat. Grab your copy of Infinitale Chronicles, War of the Trees from Amazon. You've also got your own website, correct?
Yep. InfinitaleChronicles.com.
InfinitaleChronicles.com. Thank you again. We got to get you back on when you come out with book 2. When you're pushing book 2, come back on. We'd love to have you back on when you're pushing book 2.
Awesome, man. Yeah, this has been awesome. Thanks again.
Okay, yes.
Oh no, it's our privilege.
Yes. So, guys, we'll be back tomorrow morning with Mornings of Mischief. We are reviewing the Wangs of Power. I'm not excited. We found out that yes, Galadriel does have a condition. It's called small Galadriel syndrome. She's upset that she's so short, that she's the shortest of all the Galadriels, and that's why she's acting like a complete dumbass all the time. So make sure you come and check out our review of the latest episode of Rings of Power tomorrow morning. But at 5 p.m. tomorrow, we're having a 2K celebration here on the channel. We're going to have a bunch of guests, including Adega Outlaw. So I can't wait to see you guys there. Until then, be safe, be excellent to each other. Always speak, friend, enter. We'll catch you guys on the next 7 Kinds of Mischief. Take care, everybody.
Good night.
These videos are tremendous. Like, comment, and subscribe, and hammer that notification bell.